Mackenzie Richmond Hill Hospital. This is one of the main central hospital. It's quite large. As you can see, they actually have the COVID assessment center set up right behind the signage, but it's a bit hard to capture from afar. But basically what they're saying is that only essential visitors are allowed to hospital. There have been several cases of COVID-19 in York region. There were travelers traveling into Canada and they had been affected with COVID-19, and then there was one of the retailers, Home Depot, had a couple of employees who were affected by COVID-19. And what's really saddening is that even though people are aware of wearing masks and trying to avoid non-essential interfacing opportunities, I find that somehow, despite people attempting to follow the social distancing rules, somehow it's been spreading. And I actually saw on the news that nowadays it's more of the younger population under the age of 40 that are catching COVID-19. So I don't know what it is. Maybe people think that I am young, so I'm therefore immune to COVID-19, or it's probably a flu-like a symptom. So I hope COVID-19 gets resolved soon. I'm actually a bit scared to venture out to the COVID assessment center. As you can see, there's a bit of a tent set out right there. And I think it's the medical staff that are venturing around the parking lot. And they all have the masks on. And it's I find that the hospital is quite large, and the parking lot tends to be full of the hospital staff. But like I noted earlier, right now the signage says only essential visitors are allowed, and they have the social media on, so you can check out the latest updates as to what's happening with COVID-19. And they have the signage up saying that there's the COVID-19 assessment center available. Oh, okay. So basically, I really don't know how many people are aware of the fact that they have the COVID-19 assessment centers. This is one of the largest hospitals in Richmond Hill, and I don't know what had happened to people that had been affected. There was a Persian lady who was traveling from Iran to Canada, and she was one of the first person to get COVID-19, but I think she managed to maintain it very well because it hadn't been spreading afterwards. But later on, the mass case of the COVID-19 outbreak was the 14 or 15 employees that were affected by COVID-19. So as you can see, the COVID assessment center has a tent set up, and they have the attention, and then they have all the hospital staff members and people that kind of are trying to find out how to assess themselves for COVID-19. And they have the appointment only in line, and there are actually I kind of smell the hospital from here, but it's very well maintained. I mean, so far I don't see any issues with the way that people have the social distancing rules. But I guess I'm kind of worried when, people who are of young age, they kind of think, oh, I'm young, so therefore I'm not going to be affected by COVID-19. I mean, like, I am very concerned about the fact that this has been an ongoing pandemic, and some small businesses have been greatly affected, and a lot of oil gas sector has been affected as well. But what I find interesting is that even though the oil sector in Canada has been really affected and undermined by COVID-19, surprisingly there are more and more people that are driving cars. And it might be that because the public transportation may not be safer than driving their own vehicles. And nowadays, all of the buses that are operating in York region require people to wear masks. So everyone has to wear the mask. And what's interesting about this York region Mackenzie Hospital is that they put these rainbow-like, I guess, as a note of thank you for the hospital staff. Initially, I thought that maybe this was more like a pride celebration or something. But it appears that they're actually thanking the hospital staff for all their hard work during COVID-19. As you can see, the building is really large, and they have several units and wings. The parking space. Obviously, it's not as busy as during the daytime, but this is a very large hospital. And they actually have a school right across, and as you can see, all the parking lot is pretty much occupied. So I guess even though it's only the essential visitors that are allowed into the building, there are still a lot of staff working to cure and find solution for people who are sick. So I mean, like, I personally also feel that, you know, I actually am not only worried about the general public that might be affected by COVID-19, but people who are actually working in the front line, the healthcare workers. But I find that, I don't know about other hospitals, but I think this hospital is doing the COVID-19 signages really well. No visitors please unless it's very essential. So some exceptions might apply. Thank you for helping to keep our patients and staff safe. I actually don't think I'm gonna be venturing inside to the building, because obviously it's only essential visits allowed, and I definitely want to comply with the social distancing rules. And I actually find it surprising that, you know, most people are now aware of applying the hand sanitizer and wearing the masks and maintaining that social distancing. But sometimes I find that, like, some people don't really mind hanging out in groups of more than 10. Right now, the Ontario government only allows people of 10, like, in terms of socializing or hanging out. Like, they actually had a very severe restriction in terms of people gathering together, and then they gradually opened into the new phases. But now it's up to 10 people. And what I find, even though there are many businesses that have been facing COVID-19 risks, some people are just hanging out in the groups of 30 or 50, and they don't seem to mind. I mean, there was actually a news of a large group of people gathering in some parts of Greater Toronto area, and they got featured. I mean, there was one where people were hanging out in more than hundreds in downtown Toronto. And I think that kind of raised awareness, and I don't really see that kind of an incident in Richmond Hill, but it's still ongoing and part of the reality here.